I will now introduce our next speaker. Timofey Kunitskiy is Counsellor of the Embassy of the Russian Federation. So, Timofey, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Dear friends in the audience, dear friends at this stage, and also dear friends in the engine room of this event, it is a privilege to be here. It is a privilege to be able, thanks to the kind invitation of the Friends of Socialist China, of Keith and his comrades, and the chair, to mark together the anniversary of these mementos. And it's not, of course, the first time you hear the word mementos today just because of the scale of the date. So the momentous event of the founding of the People's Republic of China. It is probably known to you that the Soviet Union was actually the first country to recognize the People's Republic of China at the international stage in 1949. And then it was very shortly followed by the Treaty for Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Cooperation. And today, as we observe with great delight, continuous successes of our neighbor under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, we also glad to see our bilateral relations between the two countries standing at unprecedentedly high level and ever strengthening and expanding. This strategic choice for long-term development of our relations, at least as we see it in our country, and we appreciate that it is also seen like that in Beijing, has been yet again reflected this year, at least at the two major events, as you would know, in Moscow, when we celebrated what we would call victory at the Great Patriotic War. Of course, in Britain it was celebrated as victory in Europe, and we have great respect to this. And also in September, when victory against militarism in the East was celebrated. It is not, however, just about bilateral domain and contribution of these bilateral relations to the development of our countries, what I'm going to speak, because our friendship and cooperation has always been placed in broader global context. It was historically inevitable. Here we must look again back to history, to 1930s and 1940s, well before the People's Republic of China was founded. We need to look at the historic stand of Chinese people against militarist Japan, and at the point when Soviet specialists and notably pilots would join the fight. And then later, when the USSR was fighting Nazi hordes, epic resistance of Chinese people at their theater helped to contain Japan in the East, and we wouldn't have stopped in the back. Whereas we also enjoyed the support of our allies in the West, British and United States Lend-Lease, as we would remember from the Arctic convoys. And then in 1945, Chinese people and Soviet people and other allied nations together made sure that the enemy is defeated both in the West and in the East, at the great cost, of course. Now our cooperation, or rather back then, our cooperation would be an important factor in establishing the post-war settlement. Chinese and Soviet cooperation would help to reinvigorate the anti-colonial movement, and anti-colonialism would for both our countries be among the most important missions in the decades that followed. Now our cooperation is a direct development of those strengths, obviously. On the one hand, remembering all the sacrifices and sufferings of 1930s and 1940s, we stand against the attempts to rewrite the history of the World War II, attempts to reassess the evils of that time, and also At a broader level, we stand against the attempts to bring those evils back in any new form, to dismantle the historical memory of humanity, and to replace those well-established principles of world order and dialogue forged as a result of the victory in World War II with what some would call rules-based order, at the expense, inter alia, of the international law. On the other hand, we are united in our vision of building a just, multipolar world order with a focus on nations of the global majority. This is, of course, our form of fighting neocolonialism today. And finally, we see strategic partnership with China as a stabilizing force when it comes to the challenges and threats facing our Eurasian continent and the wider world. This issue is a constant focus of our bilateral political dialogue, and Russia's concept of creating a common space of equal and indivisible security in Eurasia, indivisible for all, resonates closely with President Xi Jinping's global security initiative. Of course, our efforts pursued not just bilaterally. Here we speak about multilateralism very importantly. That's why we attach such importance to the United Nations, to BRICS, it's impossible not to mention this very important forum, and to Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Within the latter, for example, since there was an important meeting there just less than a month ago, we have given careful consideration to the proposals put forward by President Xi Jinping for establishing a more effective and functional system of global governance. And this initiative is one that Russia supports. Of course, it is needless to say at this audience, but still I would stress it, that all this is being done in non-confrontational manner. It is not just as any actions of any of our countries, not directed against anyone, against any nation, against any state, and it is rather supposed to benefit everyone, benefit, even if it sounds too loud, but to benefit all of humanity. And now I would send very best wishes to the people of People's Republic of China, and also to wish all the best to everyone at this audience.
Thank you so much, Councillor Kunitskiy. I think that was a really, really helpful reminder of so many important things about the past that has brought us here, the Russian Revolution, the history of solidarity between Russia and China, historically, and also in a new form today. I think the increasing closeness of relations between the People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation is one of the most hopeful developments for peace and prosperity for humankind as a whole. And Councillor Kunitskiy has underlined exactly the ways in which the two hugely important, systemically important countries, one territorially the largest and one demographically nearly the largest, no longer, but nevertheless, nearly the largest. I think this is really very critically important for the future of defeating capitalist imperialism and allowing countries to take charge of their own economic destiny, to fashion economic models that work best for each country and for the people of each country. So thank you again very much.